What's going on, everybody? I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching The Sit Down. Brad Montague here with us, New York Times bestseller, Becoming Better Grownups, the brand new book. What's up, man? How are you?
Hello. I'm so excited to talk to you. You are a great interviewer. I've seen you. You're so good at what you do.
Well, you're great at what you do too, so I'm glad we're finally connecting here.
This is a big moment. Thank you.
Well, we got a lot to talk about here, and I love like the big overarching theme with you is like you've just embraced your inner kid, embraced your inner child. So why don't we just wind this back? Like, how did you kind of create this whole world for yourself and just leaning into who you were and then who you kind of always have been?
I found myself a lot of times thinking, what do I do with this weirdness that I have? Like, what do you do with it? And that's sort of where everybody is. What do you do with this? I worked in the newsroom for a while and I had a hard time with it. I respect people who can do that. But for me, I was working with, I had a camera, and I would find myself being told to go, get great footage of this car accident that just happened and report back to it. And I felt like I wasn't able to tell the stories I wanted to tell. And then I worked in marketing for a while, and you're telling other people's stories. I learned a lot about craft and all that, but it was when I started spending time with kids that I reconnected to who I was, my own inner child, and what was possible when we all listened to kids more. It just, like, my imagination ran wild. I thought about all the possibilities all around us. And so, like, bridging the divide between grown-up cynicism and childlike wonder and awe, that's where I sit. That's what I want to do for myself and for everybody in my orbit.
I think that's a good place to be. And I've always told people, like, we're all just kids grown up. Like, we see these things that we're doing as like 5-year-olds that manifest themselves in your 20s and 30s and 40s. And you've definitely hit on that with your stuff. So when you think about it, like, why don't we listen to kids enough? Like, what is the deal with all of that?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. I mean, some of it's like survival, because you get past it and you think, okay, I don't want to think about junior high ever again, and then there's this stuff that piles up, and over time, and then the next thing you know, you find yourself and you've grown up. You're the grown up in the room. What are you supposed to do now? And what I love is I found out, I started this web series called Kid President, and with that was my little brother-in-law that I would be in a room and we would be interviewing people who had done big things in the world and who were world leaders. And whenever I would talk to them about, who was your favorite teacher, their whole demeanor would change. Their answers were easy. Their eyes would light up, their posture, everything was different. And they were reconnecting to this person, this part of their life where they were encouraged, where they were reminded of what it means to be a grown-up, to grow up, to fly and help each other fly. And so they came to life. It's what
Who was
happened.
the teacher that helped you fly at a young age?
Oh man, my 4th grade teacher. I wanted to teach 4th grade. That was my dream. Still, like, I think about maybe retiring and just
not too late.
I'm gonna retire. Yeah, that's the dream, like, to teach 4th grade, because the way she did it, I think she was the first non-relative adult who looked me in the eyes and went, "Hey, I see you. I see what you're doing. You're finishing your tests early just so you can draw on the backs of them. I see it. You're an artist." And nurtured that. And I mean, when I had my first book come out, she got one of the first copies. This one, she's getting a copy. Like, it's when you do something for someone when they are young and help them know who they are, you never forget it.
So when we think about it from the flip side, in terms of how we can be better adults, like, what are some things you've thought about in your life, or what are some things that you talked about, like, especially with the people for this book? It's like all different types of people that you've run across. So what are some of the main themes you're hitting on here?
Yeah, well, when I started the book, it wasn't like, I want to write a book. This wasn't even supposed to be a book. It was just, I didn't know what to do next with this thing that went bonkers viral. And I was working on the next project. I was working in TV. I was working for children's media. I was doing all this work and it just wasn't working out. And so when I started listening to kids and asking them, what do I do next? Like, how can I be a good grown up? What does it mean to grow up? The stuff they told me changed everything in my head about what it would mean to be a good adult. I thought it was big stuff. I thought to be a good dad meant that we have a big zoo in our backyard for every birthday party. We go on giant trips and I get them all sorts of stuff. And that's nice. But what really changes things, what kids want, need, and deserve is literally just for us to show up. Mm-hmm. Like looking them in the eyes every day is the most important thing you can do. To meaningfully, thoughtfully listen to them and see them, that's what changes things over time. And what a relief for me to go, oh, okay, that's all I got to do. Okay, let me like do that on purpose and really think about how I do that. And then I thought, what if I could tell every teacher in the world who's stressing out about what's happening in their classroom and let them know you don't have to do anything remarkable. You already are. Just your presence matters. So I know it's hard some days, but keep doing it. And any parent in the world, it's okay. Do it.
That stuff goes such a long way. And like just meeting kids where they're at and just trying, like just giving a crap, showing up, like you're saying, and just looking at a kid in the eye and saying like, hey, I'm going to show you love. I'm going to show you attention. I'm going to show you that I care. Like that is such a simple thing, but like it has a generational impact for a lot of these people.
Yeah. And it was interesting because the kids were telling me that. Mm-hmm. And then I started to see that, Harvard has done multiple studies on child development and that love is the active ingredient that helps us grow. That's what changes things. And it's really a fascinating thing for us to know about each other. The fact that we need each other, that we grow in relationships. And the things that are the hardest and most challenging for us and sometimes cause us the most problems are actually the things that are helping us. And I love that right now, though I didn't plan for a book to come out in the middle of a global health crisis, but I'm grateful that the messages within it are still true and will always be true, that our connections to each other matter, young and old. Regardless of proximity, our hearts are connected always.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to put it. And, you hit on something interesting earlier when you just talk about kids media in general, like just the evolution of it is really interesting. Cause like you think back to the old days of Mr. Rogers and then it's like, you go to all these different books. Like when I was a kid, it was Captain Underpants. And like, now it's like people are watching Big Mouth and it's like, it's a whole new generation of like, we're hitting some really important stuff. So what's been like for you to see the evolution of all this over the last couple of decades?
Yeah, I think it is an important responsibility when you decide you are going to tell stories, whether it's in news like yourself or it's someone writing things for kids, because stories will remind us who we are. And storytellers have a responsibility, whether they know it or not. That's what they're doing, is letting us know who we are, what we're capable of. And so I really love that there are thoughtful creators out there who want to tell stories that help show kids what's possible. And not just kids, but us former kids too. Like when you think about a great series like what Harry Potter did, in which it resonated with young and old because it showed us what happens when you embrace goodness and work as a team and all of those things. And so I'm really also very excited about what's happening in picture books right now. Some of the greatest artists in the world right now are working in telling stories in 33 pages that show us what a community could be, and show us how we can work together, how we can overcome differences, work through problems. And some of those things people will dismiss and say, oh, that's for kids. But they're for all humans. What's true for you when you're 3 will be true when you're 93, though the complexities of it will have layers. If those messages are still true.
Yeah, sometimes the simplest stuff is the key, like 33 pages. You don't need 300 pages to tell the story and to have an impact. And I think that's really cool. And, I wonder, like, when you've done all your work, do you have a story about an impact on a kid, an impact on a teacher, stories you like to tell about how your stuff has really crossed over into culture?
Yeah, when we started doing Kid President videos, it was just from my house, and we would film an old record player with a tin can with some string, and just post them online. And at first I thought, oh, this is fun, people are watching. And then I thought, oh, this is fun, people are watching, and then they're going and doing something as a family together. We started this project with it that was called Socktober. And so we had done it locally with our community. We found out that there's a shelter that takes care of men and women who are homeless, and that one of the most needed but least donated items as they were getting ready for winter was socks. So we said, well, let's have a Socktober. All of October will be Socktober. And we got donations. And then we had on the internet posted, hey, Kid President says it's Socktober. And there was no prize. There was no like central office they had to report to. It was literally just, hey, here's some human beings in need. Find them, do something good. And people did it. People would still check in and be like, hey, is it okay if we do this? Yeah, do it. And then the best moment in all of this, I found myself on an airplane, and there's a guy beside me, and he said, so what do you do? And I said, I make silly videos on the internet. It's like for kids and grown-ups to work together to make the world a better place. And he said, oh, that sounds neat. Well, you need to see what my kid's school's doing. It's this project. They call it Socktober.
Oh, my gosh.
And then he showed me a picture of him with his daughters donating to their shelter. And I just sat there going, what? And I wanted to scream, that's me. That was my idea. I did that.
That's amazing.
I was too stunned. I couldn't. So I just went, that's a good idea.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe you didn't tell this guy. That's insane.
Well, because it was this huge, profound moment. I'm up in the sky, and I think maybe it doesn't matter who gets the credit. Maybe it just matters that it happened. And so I became addicted to this idea of how can you as a creator make things that make other things? Generative art. So with this book, Becoming Better Grownups, I'm thinking, okay, I made this book and it's a mess, but what if everybody else made other things out of it? What if they closed the book and looked at their kid and played with them for a bit? What if this sparked even more? So that's what I'm addicted to.
I love it, man. Well, thank you so much for hanging out. You're doing awesome work, and we'll talk to you down the road. All right.
TJ, thank you.